and welcome to Rally FC. That's right, Rally FC, the Ghostwriter podcast. The probably only podcast on Apple Podcasts with reviews for a different show. That's right. But you are here with me once again. I am Clay Johnson. I am your host, and as always, I am not alone. So today, my guest is a friend of mine. She is an actor, a teacher, and a former accountant, Allison Mitchell.
Thank you for having me on this show. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be honest, I've just been looking for an excuse to have you on a chat. So this whole podcast is a complete sham. It doesn't exist.
Well, I can't resist the limelight. So I'm very famous to my 13-year-old. So I did my best to make time.
What better audience is there?
There's not.
I do have to ask you a question. It is a question that I ask all of my guests. So, Allie, tell me, how much do you hate me for asking you to watch this show?
A little bit. Just a little bit. So I was excited by the idea, and I didn't know what Ghostwriter was.
Right. Most people don't.
But yeah, I was like, all right, cool, podcast show, let's do this. Yeah. And I love 90s. Okay. I love 90s. I love slightly cringy things. Totally grew up with the Full House and the Cosby Show and all the other great 90s sitcoms. But this one is in a category all of its own. That's a diplomatic way to put it.
Sure.
But there are definitely some gems in this. There are definitely some moments that I audibly laughed out loud and was so glad that I witnessed them.
Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I mean, I personally feel like it holds up pretty well for its demographic, but it is definitely cheesy. And, it feels a little after school special. In some episodes more than others.
But in the best way.
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever a good way to be an after school special is. Don't know.
And actually, it reminds me of my version of this show.
Oh.
So I am the cursed, millennial that we don't like to say that word out loud. But
well, technically I am too, so.
So see, we're the cursed millennials. No one wants to admit that we're millennials. But I grew up watching a show on Nickelodeon called Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide.
Okay.
And so it's probably like that, I would say, was filmed in maybe the mid 2000s.
Okay.
So a little different, but even the beginning cover with the what were they, the composition notebooks? Like that's that's what Ned uses. That's his guide.
Okay.
And it is this fantastic, cringy, cheesy, but so fun guide to surviving middle school. And the same things, like it dealt with bullying, it dealt with like societal issues. So watching this, I was nostalgic for a different reason.
For a different show.
And laughing, but going, if I watched Ned now, I'm sure as a director, like, I would roll around in my grave of, why did they do this? But at the same time, it's written for the kids, and it was such a great show. So I think this show, like you said, for its demographic, I think that this was probably an excellent show, and I'm sure it had such a following while it was on air.
Oh yeah. And the thing is, because I've got nostalgia, it hits me in those feels, and sometimes I'm like, oh, this is fun. But I obviously can I can also step back and say, wow, this is also really cheesy. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into this episode. I will say, when I asked you to do this, I just thought that this would be a fun one to do. I will say, though, like 2 weeks ago, I was like, I don't know why I didn't ask the theater teacher to do the one that actually had a subplot about an acting class. That's not this episode. That's like a little ways down the road. But instead, you get to watch the one about Gaby being afraid that she's going to turn blue.
I mean, if I could pick, theaters up there, but second, definitely people turning blue. Like, very passionate about that issue.
Yeah, that's a big one. It's a real big one. But yeah, okay, so this episode is called Am I Blue? And I've got to say, first off, we don't often talk about the titles, but that title is super confusing because it is 100% about the plot that is happening. If you don't know this plot, if you don't know anything about this show, you would have a completely different idea as to what this plot or what that title is all about.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, it could be sad, it could be, am I, I guess eating too many blueberries? I mean, if you want to get...
Am I going to see the Blue Man Group? Like,
right,
what is this?
Exactly. If you want to get touchy, it could even seem political. Believe me, I did not plan this. I did not plan this.
Oh, sneaky.
Yeah. But what it really refers to is Gaby. We see at the beginning of the episode, Gaby has her favorite show, which is Galaxy Girl. And Galaxy Girl is all about this girl that basically saved the universe by ending war, by replacing it with a game called Hyperball. And she basically stopped the evil Makvas who, sustained themselves on war and are blue. And so she wants to, basically Galaxy Girl is coming into town. She wants to impress her, so she wants to get a Galaxy Girl costume. She doesn't have the money, so she steals it from her parents' store. Real good idea.
Yes, she does.
Yeah. And then, obviously from there, she ends up feeling guilty, but unbeknownst to her, someone else has somebody has stolen a very valuable prop from the television show and planted it on her. So now she looks doubly guilty. And the episode is really about her kind of untangling her guilt, coming clean to her parents, and then the team trying to figure out who really stole the valuable prop.
Yes.
So, yeah.
What I love when I step back and analyze it, like I didn't think about this when I was watching the show, but when I'm reflecting on it, it's a little meta because
I kept thinking, are they referring to their own show?
Yes, it's a little meta, and in the show Galaxy Girl it's all about replacing this concept of war and bad decisions and crimes against each other with a sport and like a healthy way to figure it out. Yeah. But then you have all these people that have been driven a little fan crazy by the show that are then doing the things that Galaxy Girl would be so disappointed by.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. What I thought was really funny is the fact that basically you could tell everybody on the team actually really at least used to really like, and most of them probably still watch the Galaxy Girl, but they all claim that they don't. Well, except for Gaby. Gaby is 100%. She's unfazed. She is proud. She is a proud fan. You're not going to shame her. But the whole rest of the team is like, no, that's for babies. I only watch it when I have to.
And then they can quote everything that happens in it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Which
that's also meta.
Which I think, honestly, because, unfortunately, the show itself ended because of lack of funding, but it actually was pretty popular, especially around this time, for its age group, for its demographic. And so I think it may have kind of been speaking to its older fans, like, hey, you don't have to be ashamed of liking this show.
Yeah, I agree. I think it definitely was. And I don't know so you would know this better than I do. I don't know how many episodes or seasons it ran, but especially if this one was running closer to its end, of the series, that would make even more sense.
Well, this was actually the very first episode of season 2. Although, as we expressed, I'm pretty sure that they actually filmed the last episode of the first season in the same production block because the kids already look older. In that last episode, about the age that they look now. In fact, I think the only thing that they did to make it look like there were different times is that now all of a sudden in this episode, Tina has bangs.
Yeah,
she didn't last
the sign
episode.
Of maturity, of course.
Yes, that now she has bangs to show that time has passed. Galaxy Girl's coming into town. And, Gaby is asking everybody for money because she wants to buy this costume because she doesn't have any. And apparently she is a really bad person to lend money to. Which,
yes.
which of course, Alex tells everybody. And it's like, I understand, but really...
That's not good enough, Alex.
It's like, come on, Alex. Yeah. You really gonna rat out your sister like that?
He definitely swings that pendulum of, I'm totally for her and she's totally innocent, versus, no, you're terrible and I will not lend you money.
I will say, if you listen to any episode of this show, you would know that I absolutely love Gaby. Gaby is one of my favorite characters on the show. And Alex, I'm constantly making fun of. But, and I've said this before, I love their dynamic together. I think that they play brother-sister so well.
Yes, I agree.
And so, I really you mentioned it because, Gaby is, later on going to be accused of stealing this. Even though she has stolen from the store, she came clean, and Alex is 100% on her side. And it's really kind of nice to see that. I mean, previously we saw an episode where Gaby was sick, and he was definitely kind of big brothery there. Although he did begin that by just staring at her, and when she asked why, he said, well, there's nothing good on TV. Yeah, but in this, I actually really respected Alex in the way that he stuck up for Gaby. I mean, he's still very much Alex. He's still kind of flying off the handle. But, he's also very protective of his sister, which was something I really like to see.
Yeah, I feel like, and this show is so funny because there are so many moments that are, as my middle schoolers would say, cringy.
Sure,
and unrealistic. But there are also equally as many moments like that. The relationship dynamic between brother and sister. Because I have a brother that's 3 years older, and I mean for me, that was a great brother-sister relationship right there, where they did swing the pendulum of you're driving me crazy. We are related and you're irritating, but still at the end of the day, like that's their blood. And it's very evident that they both love each other.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to see that portrayed on television.
Right. And, just to kind of skip around, one thing that I have always said that this show does so well is their, relation of the family dynamics and the way they relate to each other. I love the Fernandez family. They legitimately are honestly, if this was if they just turned this show into the Fernandez family hour, I would be good.
Oh yeah. I would totally watch it.
Yeah.
I may almost like that slightly better.
Yeah.
I love the Fernandez family.
Yeah, they're great. And I love them, how they kind of go back and forth between Spanish and English. It does something to me that I'm just like, yes, that is awesome. It's like,
and it's so fluid. It's like true Spanglish.
Yes, yeah, and it is. It's very natural. It's not put on. I mean, somebody, one of my previous guests made the point that they say they're Spanish in a very kind of American slow way, so that the the gringos in the audience can understand that they're saying words.
Yes.
But even that is done in a very natural way.
Yes.
And it's just, it's great. It reminds me of, have you ever seen or heard of the show, The Band's Visit? I
am familiar with the plot, but I have not seen it.
Okay, I mean, the plot is basically just a band from Egypt goes to the wrong city in Israel, and they're stuck there for the day. That's the plot. It's really all about connectivity and personal relationships. It's amazing. But there is a scene in that show where basically kind of the leader of the band is hanging out with this woman, and she just asks him he mentions that he's sung, that he sings. And she was like, "Oh, sing for me. And he's like, it's in Arabic. You won't understand it." She's like, "I don't care. I just want to hear it." And he starts singing, and she has this whole song about how this singing is like just entrancing her. And she's like, "I don't know what he's saying. He could be, it could be poetry. It could be, some of the best music I've ever heard, or he could be singing about fishing. I don't care. What's amazing about it is that number one, it's different. It's something that I'm not used to, but it's real and it's authentic. And there's just something about that. And that's the way I feel about the scenes with the Fernandez family.
Well, and that's I'm gonna throw a little of my theater philosophy at you. That's something that we talk about, even with my middle schoolers in school, is the beautiful thing about stories and television and plays and all of these performance media is you learn to transcend just the language. Sometimes it's in the physicality, it's in their facial expressions, it's in, like you said, just watching the relationship unfold. Yeah. You don't always have to know the language or exactly what they're saying to be moved by it and still kind of understand. What is it? Ursula from Little Mermaid always body language.
Body language.
The sea witch knew. And I do have to point out, because I wrote this down.
Sure.
I was taking notes. I had lots of thoughts.
Oh, absolutely.
And I love Miss Fernandez 90s finance advice, where she makes it very clear that you cannot borrow unless you know when and how. And I literally yelled at the TV, "Preach, Miss Fernandez," because that is not the 2020 way. No. We get 7 letters a day of like, "Hey, here's lots of money you should borrow."
Yeah.
If Miss Fernandez was in charge of the world's finances, we would be in such a better state.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
She gives great advice.
We really just need them running everything.
Yes. Yes. So when they reboot this later, I guess it would be Miss Fernandez and Mr. Fernandez like grandchildren.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm all for that episode where they figure out how to like teach our current children how to like budget their bitcoins or whatever.
There you go. All right. Okay, so, like I said, Gaby is trying to figure out a way to get this costume, but her talking about this, she's got a flyer with Galaxy Girl on it, and so Ghostwriter reads it, and he's like, "What's Galaxy Girl?" And this scene made me laugh a little bit, because every time they would think, "Oh, we just explained it to him. He knows what's going on now." They'd basically just like bring up another question. It's like, "Oh, she created Hyperball." And he's like, "What's Hyperball?" And they're like, "It's a game." "What kind of game?" "Oh, it's like this." "Well, how do you play it?" And I'm like, guys, can you not be a little more succinct with your answer?
Well, and you know that in these children's brains, they're thinking, "You dipshit, we just told you what it is. Why are you asking? Like, what part of this do you not get, BW?"
Well, and also, like, it is a dynamic of the show for them to, I've mentioned several times that sometimes the show makes the children look like idiots because they have to make obvious mistakes so that we can show the kids how to solve even these most obvious blunders.
Yes.
So it's like, of course, somebody who's never heard of Hyperbole is not going to know what you're talking about when you just say it's a game. But, they've got to take it step by step so that we can see each little bit of that.
Well, and I actually think it's cool how they incorporate it there when they're like typing back to Ghostwriter, this is what it is. And you see it throughout when they're solving clues and other moments. I actually think that's really clever how they incorporate the importance of literacy.
Sure.
And I think that's very intentional for the fact that it is targeting, I would say, I guess elementary through lower high school is probably what this show's targeting. It's about 8 to maybe 16.
Yeah,
I think
I was
target.
In like 10 or 12 when I was watching it by the time it ended. And I mean, the kids were like 13, 14.
Yes. So. Well, and at one point when it's almost, I don't know what you would call it. It's not a Mad Lib, but there's a moment where they're trying to fill in the letters of the clues.
Right.
And even I, as I'm an adult, am sitting here going, oh, okay. Like I'm trying to write it down and beat the computer to solving it myself. And that if I am an adult am doing this, like children were totally like, oh, I have to figure this out. And I think that in a really cool, low-key way, I think, the producers were like, oh, we're going to show you how important literacy is, but in a sneaky way where you're not going to know it.
Did you also love how we got to see them like write every single letter when they were doing that type of stuff though? It's like, okay, we can speed this up just a little bit, guys.
Right? And they use so much paper. Like all the clues could have gone on one piece of paper. I just kept thinking, how many trees are you killing?
I'm like, you guys seriously, it's like they've got their casebook. I'm like, you guys seriously must go through a notebook, a story. Because they are writing on a fresh piece of paper every time they're writing Ghostwriter a message.
And giant letters.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, just like their computer screen, so big that you could really only write like 2 full sentences on there. If that.
Although they the one thing there, I was in my head laughing, going, seriously, write this all down on one paper and speed it up. But on the other hand, I was watching their penmanship and I was going, well, crap, I don't even write that well. Like maybe that's why they write, if you take 3 minutes, your penmanship will be great.
Yeah, of course, we've also had the theory of the stunt writer on this show, because if you notice, most of the kids have the exact same handwriting.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Even when they change pens.
Sure.
Even when they change pens.
I mean, it's all print, so there's that to kind of back them up. But yeah, pretty sure there's a stunt writer.
Some producer's nephew was definitely rolling up in there with credits as the stunt writer. Yeah.
There you go. Absolutely. All right, so Gaby can't get money from them. Ghostwriter would give it to her, but he has no money because he's dead.
Is he really? Because this episode doesn't actually really explain what Ghostwriter is.
Well, I mean, like that is. I mean, we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but that was one of the things that was like introduced by the show that like they said in the first episode. Oh, we need to. This is going to be a mystery that we're going to talk about, and they rarely mention it, to be honest.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, he went really from, in most episodes, he's less of a character and more of a tool. In this one, they mention him. I do want to mention this because they kind of do this runner of Gaby wanting to hug Ghostwriter.
Okay.
They do it like 2 or 3 times, because in this scene, he's, at the end of him explaining Hyperbole, he's like, maybe we can play someday. And they're all like, yeah, wouldn't that be cool? Yeah, then we could see Ghostwriter. And Gaby then like stays at the computer and is like, and I could give him a great big hug. And she hugs the computer. And then like later on in the episode, after she has, stolen the money and she's feeling really bad, and basically Ghostwriter is the one that finds out.
Yes.
And they do introduce this interesting wrinkle that Ghostwriter respects her privacy. He will not read her diary. In fact, there's a moment where she's writing it in her diary and reading it out loud after she wrote it. I'm like, why did we do that? I don't know.
Right? In all caps, I
Yes.
wrote down, girl, never admit your guilt in writing when you have a magic ghost that can read your book.
But he goes to read it, and the moment he sees Dear Diary, he runs away. So we've established that, but in a couple scenes later, he has, because, he went to the store where she bought it and read the receipt. And so he brings it when Gaby's the only person in the room. He just writes it on the computer screen, and she's like, did you read my diary? And he's like, no, I wouldn't do that. He's just like, I read the receipt and all this kind of stuff. And they have the typical conversation you'd have with Ghostwriter, like, I'm feeling bad. And he's like, no, you're a good person. You just need to do the right thing, that kind of thing. And she's just like feeling very low. And he writes, hug. But she's turned around, so she can't see it. And he does this swirl around her like he's hugging her.
Yes.
But once again, I'm like, well, obviously that was done in post. She wouldn't have seen anything. But I wonder if they told the actress that was happening, because she didn't react to that at all.
You make a good point. I'm trying to picture that in my mind, because I actually did think that was kind of a sweet moment.
Yeah.
It was a really sweet moment, but now reflecting back on it, you're right. She doesn't have very much of a reaction to it.
No, I mean, she's very inward in that moment. She's holding her arms into herself, and I mean, you could, if you wanted to in your head, you could imagine that she kind of pulls inward when he does that, like she can feel it. But I don't know that was the intent of the actress, because I don't know if she was told that it was happening. I feel like it may have just been a decision made in post.
I think that you're right. You're right. I can definitely justify in my brain, because sometimes when you hug people, and depending on how far you are inside your own psyche, you may not react very much facially or physically.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you're right there. I don't think the actress was trying to portray that. I don't think the directors told her to act like she's being hugged.
Yeah.
I think that was definitely something they threw in going, this is really cute.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, like I said, it is kind of a runner, because that's not the last time that happens. There is then towards the end of the episode, in the final, or towards the end of the story in the final episode, there's that dream sequence that she has. She's intermittently having this dream sequence towards the beginning of every episode, where she's dreaming that she is Galaxy Girl. And there's that whole thing of her, turning blue because, she's feeling guilty about lying and all this kind of stuff. And it's basically turning her evil. And, then her friends come in and, are like, you've got a good heart. You didn't do this. I mean, you feel bad about it. You're not a Makva. You're not blue. You're not evil. And she turns back.
You made a mistake.
Yeah. But if you notice when they all come in, there's one extra tall figure with them. And they all, once she turns back normal and she's feeling good about herself again, they all come in and they hug her. And then this last extra tall figure, who's got basically a mask over their face, comes and hugs her. And it's obviously an adult, and hugs her. And when she wakes up, she's like, Ghostwriter. It's like, oh, wow, I guess she finally got her hug from Ghostwriter.
But I think she did.
That's just like, I thought that was a really interesting, running thing that they had through the whole story. I'm like, I guess we just really wanted to, because like I said, they do have a tendency to just use Ghostwriter as a tool. And I think they were like, we really need to incorporate him as a character.
More, personify him a little bit more.
Right.
Give him a little more emotional attachment to the show.
Right. But yeah, I found that really interesting. And something else that I found interesting, like I said, Gaby steals from the bodega, and she goes to the party animal, And as anybody that's been keeping up with the show knows, a trip to the party animal means one thing. The return of Calvin Ferguson.
Calvin Ferguson, which I gotta say, Calvin, I think, is the best actor of all of the kids.
Okay, I don't know if I would necessarily say the best actor, because what he is doing is so over the top, so cartoonish and arch. I think he's definitely the one having the most fun, but it's really kind of hard, you know, because I know lots of people that can act like that, but can't do anything else.
I am partial to the Malfoy caricatures, though.
Sure.
And he was very much a 90s Malfoy, so maybe that's why I was drawn to his character. But I agree. He definitely has the most fun, at least track in this episode. I think he has the most fun in lines.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I mean, listen to that laugh. It's just...
It's so perfectly 90s.
I mean, he's a soap opera villain. He is like...
Yes!
So
that's what it is.
Well, I mean, you know, he's really only been in a couple other stories. And in the last one, you know, he really kind of established this kind of chaotic, almost Joker-like figure that he is. Because in the last episode, he was basically trying to keep Alex from winning the election. And he was actually the campaign manager of, what's his name? The other kid that was his friend in the episode.
Jeremy.
Jeremy. Jeffrey. Close.
Oh, Jeffrey.
Yeah. But, you know, basically, you know, the team tells him, they were like, well, Jeffrey's not going to win. He's like, I don't need to win. I just want to make sure that you don't win. I was like, oh, jeez, dude. And what's crazy, he won. Like, in that episode, Alex ended up losing the election. I was like, it's like they ended up finding out that he was the one, and he ended up taking the fall and getting suspended. But they let him win. I was just
even after that?
Well, I mean, his candidate didn't win the election, but by Alex losing, Calvin won.
Good
now,
grief.
Granted, by the end of that episode, everybody was basically looking at Alex's campaign and saying,
That's not good enough, Alex.
because he was not focused. He just wasn't in it at all. But yeah, I was like, that's insane that they let Calvin win. And it's been so long now since we have seen him that, I mean, you know, from this point on, anytime Calvin comes in, he's going to be a red herring because he is so arch. He is so, you know, villainous. It's like, you can't let it be Calvin again.
Well, and
if it's ever supposed to be a mystery.
Yes. Well, and that makes sense because this, for me at least, watching it on YouTube, is divided into 4 parts.
Right.
And so before the end of one, or by the end of one, I'm going, oh, well, duh, this is obvious. It's obviously Calvin. How can it not be? And it's funny how at every different step of the way, I was like, oh, it's obviously this person. Yeah. Episode 3. Oh, well, duh, Allie, it's clearly this person. But yeah, they definitely, in the first fourth of it, well, really the first half of the show, it's definitely shooting you in the direction of Calvin.
Sure. Well, I mean, and that's really backed up by the fact that, number one, he is choosing to personify the villains of the Galaxy Girl universe, the Makvas, who are basically blue aliens who apparently before Galaxy Girl saved the universe by creating Hyperball and replacing all war with a game. They were the ones that basically sold weapons to all of the various sides, and apparently they created the 3 Makva laws in order to get back, which are say yes, do no, choose to confuse, lie to get by. Which, it's silly, but it's fun to say.
And even in the chant, like, they do this whole, mantra. That's the word.
Yeah.
The mantra that the Makvas use when Jeffrey and Calvin are actually acting that out. They have this whole coordinated, choreographed moment, and your homeboy Calvin gets so into it in the end. Like he's body rolling up in there by number 3. I maybe that's my secret fascination with Calvin. I saw him commit to that bit, and my heart just went yes.
He's definitely totally committed. He's super fun to watch because of it. Honestly, I wish he was on the show more, but because he is such an obvious red herring, it's like, you can't, unless he's just going to be in every single episode as either the recurring villain or somebody that eventually they form an uneasy alliance with, which, I mean, I will say that might be part of where they go, but, it feels weird.
Not at this point. At this point, he's strictly red herring villain.
Oh yeah, I mean, Alex keeps calling him Booger Bat, which I was like, what? Where did that even come from?
Is that even a 90s phrase? I've never heard that.
No, here's the thing. We've mentioned the fact that a lot of the dialogue, like the really serious, important stuff, the writers do very well. But when it comes to the writers trying to make teenagers from the 90s sound cool, you can tell that every one of these writers is at least 40. Because they have no clue what children of this era actually say.
Oh, yeah. We got Cosmic Cool. We got my personal favorite in the math tutoring session that's a side plot.
Yeah.
You got Ya Buggin'.
Oh,
that was the worst he could come up with was, boy, ya buggin'.
Yeah, and I think the first time that Jamal introduced himself, he said this.
Ready for one dynamite, dude?
Yeah. Yeah. Jamal's a dork. Jamal's a real dork.
He's the one that says ya buggin' and also introduces, he's like, what up, Jazz? With that slow lingering.
Yeah. Okay. We have to talk. Okay. Occasionally in this show, well, most of the time they have like a side plot. This one doesn't have nearly as many as some of the more recent episodes, but there is the side plot of basically Jamal is doing, I guess, some kind of like community support thing or whatever, whatever it is. He's tutoring, and he is tutoring math. And Jasmine, who we met in the last episode, who I guess they're now dating-ish, but basically he is, helping her out by tutoring, and he ends up having to tutor this kid that was a bully, a former bully of his.
Yeah.
And, they kind of go through, the kid won't let up, and, he's just trying to help him. And they do the whole thing of, him stomping away and then coming back and, them doing reverse psychology on him to basically accept the help.
Resolving the issue.
Right. Resolving, somebody who's being a jerk to you. But they do this scene at the end when he, finally relents and he's like, fine, you can help me. But he's like, I'm going to give you a word of advice. And he basically tells him, if you're into Jasmine, tell her. Because otherwise, me or somebody else is going to get her. Because she's awesome. And that results in a scene that I have to play. It's just, I just have to play. Okay, so here we go.
I don't see what's so crazy about letting a girl know how you feel.
You know how I feel. Why do you think I call you all the time? Why do you think I'm tutoring math for an entire month? Why do you think I walk you home when I live in the opposite direction?
Because I let you.
That was one of my favorite parts of the entire show, was when she goes, because I let you.
Yeah, it's great. And I will say I cut it off before she then comes back with, and I like you.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, okay, you know, they're 13-year-olds, they're flirting with each other. But Jasmine has had in the 2 episodes that she's been in, some of the best lines. And I'm just like, this girl, man, she should have been in the show more. Because she was just...
Yes!
Well, and what was great is that before this part of the scene, when basically Jamal is, you know, doing the reverse psychology thing, and he's like, oh, you know what? I bet the reason that you don't want to pass math is because you don't want to get picked on next year, because then you won't be the big fish in the you'll be the won't be the big fish in the small pond. You know, you'll just be like everybody else. And she just goes, mm-hmm. And I'm just like, oh, yeah.
Her sass, like, I aspire to be like this 13-year-old little character.
It's great.
Like, I'm not even that quick.
No.
Like, she's fabulous.
It's great.
I love her.
Yeah, some real good stuff. But yeah, so, you know, basically the rest of this episode is Gaby, you know, gets the costume. She plans basically to return it, saying that, you know, it didn't fit or something, and then getting her money back and returning that to the bodega. Well, then she finds out that, you know, it was on sale, and I don't think Calvin ever would have, you know, given a refund anyway. Why Calvin seemingly runs this store by himself, I don't know. But we saw his mother in 1 episode and never again.
Apparently he claims she's in the back, but I don't believe this child. I think there's a 14-year-old running this costume shop.
Honestly, I think it might be a similar situation with Lenny, who we have decided is an emancipated minor, who because she has a dad. We've seen him occasionally, and apparently in this episode, he does use their space occasionally to practice. But I feel like they have a schedule worked out. He knows when she's not there, so that he can go there and practice. Because otherwise, they don't ever seem to be there at the same time. Because most of the time, they just have this apartment, Lenny's apartment, all to themselves.
Freedom. It's just 13-year-old freedom.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so she can't return the costume, which obviously ramps up the tension.
And then we got some mischief with the cutie that goes missing. Cutesy.
Right. Yeah, so, you know, the whole reason she got the costume was so that she could go to the Galaxy Girl convention, I guess, at the school. And they're going to unveil the QTC 5000, which is the actual model that they use on the show. And it gets stolen. Dun, dun, dun.
Whoa.
Yes. And, you know, they find a note for the producer of the show that basically, like, tells him to do stuff like stand in the foul freeze box and all this kind of stuff, which, you know, they have no idea what it means, but it's got blue smudges on it. So clues.
Clearly a Smurf has gone rogue in the show.
Absolutely.
Don't know why that is never on the suspect list. Like, Papa Smurf should be the top of the list, personally.
Yeah, I mean, they got Judge Reinhold on the suspects list,
which was great. I saw him and shouted, "Neil from Santa Claus!"
There you go. Yes, Judge Reinhold, who you might remember from The Santa Claus or Fast Times at Ridgemont High or various other movies, mostly from the 80s and 90s. He hasn't been on a lot of screens, but I'm sure he's doing fine. Hopefully. But yeah, honestly, I had, you know, I watched this not that long ago in prep for the show, but when I was watching it for this episode, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot Judge Reinhold was in this. This show, like, every once in a while has like huge guest stars, and it's like, how did they... I mean, it's PBS, you know, so, you know, it's kind of like the equivalent of doing a pro bono case. You know, it makes you look good.
Yes.
But yeah, so that's really what's going on with the main plot. But we've got a couple of other things going on. And I mentioned in the last episode that I was going to keep track of this because... so Allie, a few episodes ago, I think it was like 3 stories back, they really kind of, I would say, culminated. It's been real kind of tepid, but they kind of paid off kind of this low boil, this like simmering story they'd had it in the background of basically Alex having a crush on Tina.
Yes.
And you know, in the first, basically he eventually works up the courage after calling and hanging up on her several times.
That's not good enough, Alex.
Yeah, but yeah, he eventually comes clean with her, to which she responds, I'd rather go out with my good friend Alex. Which, it's like, are they dating? Alex apparently thinks that they are, but...
I feel like if that moment had been one of the notes of check the box, yes, do you like me or no, she would have somehow written in.
Yeah.
Like, she would have written in a box that said question mark.
She would have written in, I'd rather go with my good friend Alex.
Yes.
What does that even mean?
With hearts around it. Like, hearts
Yeah.
around the word good. It just does not make sense, Tina.
But then in the next episode, he kissed her while they were in the back of a truck full of garbage, and she said she liked it. And then in the last story, they interacted not at all, mentioned their relationship not at all. So it was like, did they just forget this was a thing? Because like I said, that episode was clearly filmed in the second season block. So it was like, did they just forget from season to season? But obviously in this episode, we see in several scenes that they have brought it back. You know, there is a bit where it looks like basically Alex and Tina are going to the Galaxy Girl show together.
Yes.
You know, how together they are is not really clear in that scene. But later on, when basically Alex, you know, we'll talk about the scene itself more in depth, but basically the team finds out about Gaby stealing the money and starts to wonder whether or not she stole Cutesy. And Alex defends her, but so does Tina. And so then later on, he is thanking her. And it's funny because you can tell where he is, and he like kisses her on the cheek. She reacts not at all. In fact, she's like, you don't have to thank me, Alex. Gaby's my friend.
You're my good friend, Alex. Like, we didn't need to question mark.
Yeah, but then did you notice that after that, number one, during that scene, Alex puts down his case book, which eventually we'll talk about later. Calvin steals because he's gotten super, his alert signs are going off, but which Alex doesn't notice at all that it's been stolen, not at all, because after he kisses her on the cheek and she gives no sign that she appreciated that at all, they run off while holding hands. And I was like, number one, those two scenes did not match. Number two, that looked super awkward. Them running off while holding hands.
So uncomfortable. It's the epitome of middle school romance.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's so funny. I've got children that are the same. Like, Their friends will tell me, oh, they flirt all the time on text, but they'll be in the same class and won't even look at each other. Yeah. I really feel like Alex should have just pushed her off the stairs or like stolen her backpack, and that would have been very clear.
Yes.
And homegirl Tina
like
would have been into it. Like, she's into being kissed with the trash. Yeah. I think she would have been down with him stealing her backpack. They just, I think their signs of romance are a little crossed there. Yeah.
And honestly, it kind of would have been on brand for Alex, because
That's not good enough, Alex.
There is a fan fiction world in which, after Calvin steals the notebook, Tina then goes for Calvin, and we have an interesting love triangle. Like, you know, there's some
Calvin the booger bat.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, jeez.
There's some, I'm gonna coin it G-dubs. There's some G-dubs fan fiction out there where that is happening.
Oh, yeah. I will say that the acronym of using GW instead of having to write out Ghostwriter in every single note that they send to Ghostwriter. Although, honestly, in most notes, they don't actually acknowledge him at all. They're just like, hey, find this. But Alex decides to use this acronym for the first time, really so that eventually Calvin can find the casebook and be like, who's GW? But, of course, in storyline, it's, well, you know, it's just a cool nickname. It's like, you never use his name when you write to him. Why start now?
Maybe he had a conscience and was just trying to save one more tree. Like, less paper, bro.
Oh, geez. But yeah, you know, like I mentioned before, Calvin does, you know, they confront Calvin because, this is something we didn't mention. When when the Fernandez family finds that the money has been stolen, something that they do find in the register, instead of the 50 that Gaby paid with, because Gaby actually put her change in there. But what she also put in there was a discount chip that she got from the store for making the purchase. And I'm like, why, Gaby? Why did you leave the discount chip? That makes no sense.
Gaby is just not the best at making decisions.
Not in this episode. And see, that's the thing. Like I said, usually in most episodes, I love Gaby. And I think she did a decent job with this. But Gaby is best when she can be full of spunk and full of snark. And she's
not the guilty party.
Right, exactly. And honestly, there's a scene in here that I actually wrote down and I was like, she's killing this scene. Like there are scenes where she does really well, but it's not the Gaby that we know and love. You know?
She's a little blinded by her, like she goes a little fangirl. I think she goes a little fangirl and it kind of causes her to spiral and just start to panic.
Yeah. But yeah, so when they go to confront Calvin, because of course the moment that Calvin is tied to the case, of course it's Calvin. Calvin's the worst person in the world, which actually is not a stretch. I mean,
you're not wrong.
No, I mean, that's his laugh. What do you do with that? He's a supervillain.
Oh, yes. He now, later becomes he becomes a vigilante is what happens.
But an evil
in another fan fiction world.
Yes. Absolutely. So they go to confront Calvin and he's like, "Well, how did you get this information?" And they're like, "Never mind how we got it." And I'm like, "Really, guys? You couldn't be like, well, we researched it or we called the company," because, they get Ghostwriter to find out where the chip came from and it brings them to the party animal. But I'm like, you could have told him that you called the company that sold the chip and got the information or something. But no, you have to be antagonistic and be like, it doesn't matter.
Don't worry about it. Just admit it.
Yeah, which I will say they start in this episode because there was one episode where Rob started acting a little bit more like Alex, jumping to conclusions and, accusing people of things with absolutely no proof, which, is not a typical thing that Rob does. But in this, he kind of starts doing a little bit more of that, but in his own way. And I was like, that's an interesting way to kind of appease those two things. Because honestly, in that episode, the only reason he acted like that was because Alex wasn't there.
Yeah.
And so it's like
that makes total sense.
Yeah. So that they had to have a jerk.
Filling that hole.
Yeah.
Yeah. Filling that I don't know what phrase I want to use, but that element is missing in that scene. So they're like, oh, Rob will pick up the slack of weird accusatory statements.
Yeah. They needed an antagonist and they'd never set him up that way. In fact, he'd always been the quiet, sensitive one. But I will say that they do it kind of in this episode because he's the first one that accuses Gaby when he finds out that, and it's understandable why the team would be upset when they find out, because, here they are trying to solve this case and she's been standing there the whole time knowing information and withholding it. Because she doesn't want to make herself look guilty.
Yeah. She doesn't want to own up to it. She's not ready for the consequences yet.
Right. And so, understandably, the team, especially Rob, is just a little miffed. And honestly, that scene where, Alex confronts him is actually pretty good. I actually thought that was a pretty well done scene. But
it was very realistic.
Yeah. I mean, because, you've got two guys, the original asshole and his replacement kind of, testing themselves against each other.
Yes.
But yeah, so I will say, eventually it kind of softens, but, before all of that happens, I'm just jumping all around. Calvin does, because they antagonize him, start wondering where they're getting their information. So basically, he is, stalking them to try to figure out everything. And when he gets the case book, he, gets the name GW. And, what's really funny about this is that no matter how clever Calvin thinks he is or how good of detective work he does, he can never solve this because he is literally on the trail of something that he can't see and never will.
Yes.
So it's like
just poor boy.
Yeah.
Poor boy hunting a treasure he will never find.
No. And should never find.
No, yes, Calvin with the power of Ghostwriter is not it's not a Brooklyn that I want to live in. So
no. I mean, honestly, towards the end of the series, they started making it seem like they might be making him more friendly, and I was like,
okay.
Oh, please tell me that they're not going to eventually make him see Ghostwriter. They never got there, but I was just like, I don't think I like this. It's like, okay, if he can help them out on a case here and there, but, I don't ever want him to be part of the team. That's just weird.
Yes. He wouldn't fit in.
No.
He does not fit into their dynamic at all.
Well, and also, I don't care how good he's gotten. The power of Ghostwriter, he would be the first one to try to, Ghostwriter thankfully has a mind of his own and wouldn't help him in those schemes, but he would be the first one to try to,
He would try to start a lunch money scam or like a parent forgery notes for field trip scam. Yeah, this boy would try to make some pennies off of Ghostwriter abilities.
Absolutely. Eventually, we're ramping up kind of Gaby's guilt. This is the episode I talked about where, she has that conversation with Ghostwriter, and she decides actually that she's going to come clean with her family. Like, literally, she's like, I need to talk to my family, and tells the rest of the team to leave. But literally, right before she's about to tell them, they discover that their room has been broken into.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes, because the original thieves who planted QTC 5000 on Gaby, she had this big, like, toy trunk that she brought so that she could hide her costume. And they put it in there so that they had somewhere safe to put it so that they wouldn't get caught. But I don't know if you can hear my dog has a new
I can't.
toy.
Is that Teddy?
Yeah, he's chewing his he's chewing his birthday present. He got a duck for his birthday.
I figured it was either Teddy or you have like one squeaky chair we need to take care of.
Yeah. No, it's just me. I just squeak sometimes.
You just emotionally squeaks come out. It happens.
You know. But you know, she tries to come clean, and it just doesn't. You know, one thing or another keeps coming up, and eventually, because their place has been broken into, they eventually find not only the costume but a piece of Cutesy. And the team basically finds this out, and they really kind of have to make a decision. And this scene is played so dramatically that I have to play.
Alex, I think we're gonna have to put Gaby on.
No way.
Sorry, Alex, but it's a case, right?
We can't ignore any suspects, no matter how much we like them.
Can't do this. Can't let you put my own sister on the suspects list.
Alex, wait!
They put Gaby on the suspects list! How could you do that, Rob?
Oh, the musical underscoring of that is just perfection.
Yeah.
Oh, Rob, you traitor.
Oh,
Breaking Alex's heart left and right.
Yes, it is. It's so intense. And I love, if you paid attention, there was that moment, like, it was just music, but during that music, they were writing Gaby's name letter by letter. And if you paid attention, you could hear it.
Yes, you could actually hear the scratching of the pen of the stunt rider writing her name.
Yeah. All I can say is, it's good thing that Gaby's got a short name.
If they had written out the entire Gabriella. It would have been another entire episode just watching him write it out.
Honestly, I would not be surprised if there was an episode of this show just of them writing down clues.
Yeah.
Just one clue after another. Sorry guys, I've fallen behind in the case book.
I need them to reboot this and do a series where they're trying to figure out and like divvy up a Secret Santa episode, and half the episode is just writing out their names to put in the hat.
Yeah, I mean, I will say they have brought back Ghostwriter, but it's not this show. It's completely different. Yeah. But yeah, no, they definitely need to do a reboot of this version of the show.
Yes.
Yeah. But you know, that's the end of the second episode. Super dramatic. And you know, the beginning of the next episode is, you know, that fight between Rob and Alex that I talked about.
Yes. Well, and I think into beginning of 3, do we jump back to the school where the producer sitting in the foul freeze box,
right? Because the team, you know, obviously they're all confused as what does that mean? Because, you know, none of them want to admit that they all watch Galaxy Girl. But and what I love is that the producer doesn't know, and they're like, how do you not know your own show? I'm like, he's a producer. He's not.
They don't know
He
anything.
doesn't know. But it has to do with hyperball, which they find out by reading one of the Galaxy Girl books. You can find it in your local library. Not really. They don't exist. I will say I kept looking at, because like just about every episode they would do kind of this dream sequence of Gaby as Galaxy Girl, and I was like honestly, like it gave me kind of like Power Ranger vibes, like the dress of this show, like it felt kind of like that kind of show. And
Yes.
I was like, I kept thinking, is this a backdoor pilot for Galaxy Girl? Are they really kind of like just trying to pitch this new show?
Yes, the jumpsuit does have a little bit of a Ranger feel to it.
Yeah, just a little bit. I mean, honestly, some of their costumes look a little bit more like putties, but
yes, brightly colored putties.
Yes. But we'll examine that a little bit more later.
If only their fighting skills are as excellent as the putties, I'm sold.
Right.
You get punched in the face and you disappear. Like, I think that is the perfect end to a villain, but that is for another show.
Absolutely. As we're going along, we're trying to get more and more clues as to what's going on. Oh, I will say, we actually have a scene that is a kind of a prelude to something that might be coming up, a foreshadowing, if you will, of maybe a future episode, perhaps. It's hinted at in a couple of scenes with the Fernandez family that, they start having heart-to-hearts, and then above them, because he knows Lenny's at school and he's allowed in the house, Lenny's dad is practicing upstairs. And you can tell there's a little tension between Mr. Fernandez and Lenny's dad. In fact, in one scene, he's having this really great heart-to-heart with Gaby, and starts playing music really loud, and he gets upset, and he basically calls up Lenny's dad and threatens him, in so many words, threatens to break his instruments. And of course, Lenny's right there. Handled real well, I thought.
Yes. She handled that like a champ, because I even felt awkward sitting on my couch watching this 20 years later.
Yeah.
And I'm going, oh, she handled it like a champ. And the way that Miss Hernandez cut her eyes at Mr.
She's like,
Fernandez.
Lenny's here. It's like, dude.
Whew, they had a whole separate conversation in a different room after that. He slept on the couch that night. Is probably
very, very possible.
What happened?
What
happened?
Yeah. Oh yeah. After we plant that, for the future, just save it for later. But after that, Alex and Tina have their scene. But in that scene, basically, I think because now that we know that the thieves have Cutesy, there was a sign on Cutesy. And so they can now ask Ghostwriter to read that sign and read things around it. And so he comes back basically with receipts from Buddy Burger. But some of them are, like, there's one that's local to them in Brooklyn. But then there are others that are all in a city in Ohio. Mm-hmm. And Alex takes one attempt to pronounce this word, and he goes, Kosh something, Ohio. And I just gotta say,
that's not good enough, Alex.
You're not wrong, Gaby.
Because I'm just like looking at it and I'm like, I'm sorry. For Ghostwriter, this seems a little lazy. Because, like, it's literally a word that you could figure out how to pronounce it by sounding it out. Because it is Coshocton. Cosh-ock-ton. Coshocton. You got it. You're good. And what drove me crazy is that Tina did the same thing. And I was just like, okay, maybe we're just setting up for... I'm like, this is a Sesame Street lesson. This is not a Ghostwriter lesson. But I was like, okay, maybe I guess we're setting up, pronunciation or whatever. But then later, they're like, Kosh something Ohio. Jamal just glanced at it and he goes, oh, you mean Coshocton. And they're like, how do you know that? And he's like, because I'm brilliant. And I'm just like, oh, jeez. So,
yeah, they dropped the literacy ball just a little bit in that moment.
Yes! And...
Phonetics, people, phonetics.
Furthered my case that Jamal is a raging dork. He's great. He really is. Sheldon Turnipseed he's doing his best with this role, but they have made Jamal a dork. But in that scene, they really made Alex and Tina just seem lazy. And I was like, if there's not going to be a payoff for it, what is the point of having them not even try? I mean, it would be one thing if it was like a foreign word or, something where a lot of the consonants were silent or something like that, or a lot of consonants in a row that you don't even say. But it's literally Coshocton. Super easy to figure out.
I feel like they were both just like distracted and confused by their maybe but maybe not
relationship. Yeah,
relationship?
Alex was tripping out on hormones.
Yes,
and
Tina's trying to determine if she's into him.
Yeah,
or Calvin
she's just
at
like,
this moment.
I don't know what
like,
this is.
You're my good friend, but we can't pronunciate anything. So,
yeah, really, her confusion at the word was just her projecting her feelings about the whole situation. She's like, I don't know what's going on.
It's in Ohio. That's all that matters.
Oh, yes. Let's see. In this episode, we get, I will say, I haven't mentioned yet, but we get return of Lieutenant McQuaid, who's been in several previous episodes.
Is this the detective?
Yes, the detective.
Okay, yes.
Who was initially introduced to us as head of the arson division, but now he's basically just in charge of whatever case the kids are working on this week. Mike Hodge is the actor.
He's just in charge of all crime.
Yes.
He's in charge of solving crime.
It's really what it is it's like, Isaiah, these kids are involved. You want to take it?
Yes.
You're their detective, right? He's
when
their
the mangy
detective.
kids,
yes.
When the kids and their mangy dog show up, they call this guy. They're like, we need you to go take care of this mystery solving crime man.
Oh yes. But he pulls double duty in this episode because he doubles as kind of the leader of the Makfas in Gaby's dream sequence. And I'm just like, okay, I understand you're a little afraid of him because you're afraid that he's going to put you in prison, but why you got to do Lieutenant McQuaid dirty like that? He ain't no Makva.
I think in her mind, she just wanted to see him in blue spandex. Like, that was obviously...
Who didn't?
Her motivation. But he gets... I'm telling you, there's something about that Makva chant mantra, because Lieutenant gets super into it too.
You can tell he's having a great time. It's like, finally, Calvin is not the only one having a ball in this episode.
Like, that's who I want to go as for Halloween now, is a Makva, and just chant that the whole night.
Choose to confuse, lie to get by.
The world would just think that I was part of like a blue man group cult or something, but I wouldn't be mad at that either. So
I will say you are not the first guest that has said that there is a character on the show that you want to dress up as. So
yes,
we're gonna bring this show back. We're gonna bring it back. So all this stuff is going on. They think for a little bit that it is Judge Reinhold's character, he's playing Brett Pierce, who used to be the captain of a ship on Galaxy Girl, but apparently he got fired, and but he's still hanging around, and they're like, oh, he's just trying to get back at the producer. Well, come to find out, he's just trying to get his job back by writing a script that brings back his character.
Yep. I falsely accused him in the middle of episode 3 as well.
Sure.
And was like, oh, it's clearly this dude.
Yeah.
I realized before they exposed that it wasn't him. I realized it just in time when they found the script, like a page of a script he had writing.
Right.
So I felt proud of myself for catching it at the very last moment. Before they're like, oh, it's not this guy. But they totally had me believe in it was
well, here's the
Reinhold.
Thing. They change, like most shows that do like a mystery format, there is like a set equation for how they do the mystery. This show changes the way they do the mystery like every other episode. Some of them are what I've coined as Murder, She Wrote style, where you are solving the case along with, and they'll introduce everybody that it could possibly be, but on this show, when they do that format, it's pretty obvious.
Fair.
By the end. And then, I think like at least once they've done a Columbo style where who it is from the beginning, but that wasn't really what it was all about. It was more about seeing how they interacted. But this is a style that they've done, I think it's like the second time that they've done it, where you don't know who it is from the beginning because they don't introduce the suspect until the end. And it's like, well, of course we couldn't figure it out.
They mentioned there is a moment of foreshadowing.
Sure.
And I want to say it's in the middle of 3, maybe?
Yeah, it's towards the end. It's like
a brief moment. And I even had before I latched on to, it's definitely Reinhold's character.
Sure.
I even suspected who they alluded to, and I was like, oh, could be. Yeah. But then we never mentioned that again, and I'm like, oh, it's definitely not them.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
But yeah, it's so interesting how they, I think, that they're obviously playing with the formula to try to just figure out the most because, like I said, when they introduce all the possible suspects, this show's not very good at hiding who it is. I think in the last story that we did was the best they've done at hiding someone that was in plain sight. But for the most part, they make it pretty obvious. But in this one, they just, like you said, they allude to them in a very small little bit, but they're not really fully introduced until we find out, oh, it's them.
Yes, last minute.
Yes.
Well, I wonder if that was, I think you're right. I think there's evidence that the writers are trying to find kind of the formula that they like, what works best, what reads best, but for their demographic as well.
Right. Well, and
I think that this whole, like this style, I think can hold well, because then a teenager is going to actually watch all 4 parts to find out, because you're slowly introduced to new suspects and like new red herrings. So from one writing perspective, I was frustrated because I felt like, well, you hardly showed me any evidence that this was a possibility. But on the other hand, I had to finish it to know how it ended. Even if we hadn't had a podcast, I was committed to the plot at this point. I needed to know who stole QTC.
Right.
So I wonder if that was an aspect of it too, was just trying to find the right mystery style that would hold a teenager's attention span for hour and a half worth of a block.
Right. But yeah, we do eventually find out that the people who stole QTC 5000 were the creators of Galaxy Girl. Abigail and Jordan Jefferson, who in a scene that I could only describe as a chaotic delight.
Yes!
Because it was like, I don't know what this is, but I like it.
Yes!
Because basically they explained that what happened was, they are twins, and, they kind of just became very insulated. And, they were
a little codependent.
Yes. Never been apart, basically, created their own little world, had a really hard time making friends, but they created this world and then published it in their school newspaper, and it made them really popular. And then the producer, which I just keep saying the producer, what's the character's name? Bruce Barron.
Barron.
Yes. And his daughter Barbara, so they're a very alliterative family. But basically, Barbara Barron shows these stories to her dad, who then purchase the rights for Galaxy Girl, apparently for only $25,000, and then they never got another dime. And I'm just like, yeah, I could kind of see how you'd be pissed. So this whole thing was they were basically trying to reclaim their creation. So after trying to do it the right way through the courts and everything and failing, they decided to take on the Makva way and live a Makva lifestyle, and which I will say this is the second instance of living the Makva lifestyle that we've seen in this episode, because Calvin and Jeffrey do the same thing. Jeffrey less only half-heartedly, really just, because Calvin's his friend, although that apparently ends in this episode too.
Well, I believe at one point in the G-Dub's notebook, they do call him the shadow of the group.
Yeah, so
he's more like a shadow of Makva.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. But their version of Makva obviously is very arch and very, we're just gonna, lie to you and confuse you, and Calvin hides information from the team for no other reason than just to confuse them. And it's like, that serves you okay, whatever. But obviously, the twins' version of, theirs is much more impish and kind of fun, whereas obviously Calvin is more trying to be a supervillain.
Yes, exactly. Because when you say, when I was watching it, exactly, I see Calvin and his little sidekick as the supervillains, the typical, villainous space alien kind of creatures. Yeah. Whereas the twins really are kind of this misunderstood. I love the word.
They're a lot more
characters.
Relatable. Yeah.
Yes, you understand them and you have a sympathy for them and a relatableness to them that you don't to the soap opera villain nature of Calvin. And isn't it interesting how in the end the Makvas still win?
Honestly, because the whole thing is that Bruce Barron tells the team that, basically they've run out of good stories and he's not sure how much longer Galaxy Girl is going to last. So when he finds out that it's the twins, then that basically they never stopped writing Galaxy Girl. Although I do wonder, because I don't think that all of the Galaxy Girl scripts were written by then. So I wonder, where the lore may have deviated, but we'll see.
Yes.
But he basically drops the charges, hoping that they will write Galaxy Girl scripts. I don't think they are. At least not for him. I think that they might, because they seem in no way interested in helping him at all.
Kind of like the same reaction that Tina has to Alex's kiss. It's very just neutral. Yeah. It's very no reaction.
Yeah.
The same advice I would give to Baron as I would to Alex. Maybe push them down the stairs, steal their backpack, pull their hair, make it very evident that you're pursuing them, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, just neg them a little bit. That'll help.
Choose to confuse,
yes.
Baron. Choose to confuse.
All right. Is there anything else about the story itself that you wanted to discuss before we move on?
Not the only thing I will say is I do think that Ghostwriter is very fascinating, and I've only watched the one episode so far.
Mm-hmm.
But just from this one sampling,
Mm-hmm.
it's fascinating that it is, in some ways, a very simple show with the very simple, high-level writing, character relationship. But at the same time, like, this has 2 or 3 subplots within a very complex, overarching story. So I think Ghostwriter is very fascinating, where it's a simple story, but can be written in a very complex way.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that very fascinating.
Yeah.
Like, that's, I don't know. I wasn't expecting it to have such layers within even one episode.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said, the strength of the show is the personal relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when they get to let those shine, which I don't think that they realized that as much at the time, because I think that they would have or should have done it more than they do. But when they do, the show is at its best.
Well, and I think that for sitcom writing in general, personally, and I may be a little bit biased, but I feel like relationship-driven sitcoms are the most fascinating and the most fun to watch, because that's really what we care about. We care about watching humans interact with other humans or the world around them. And so the comedic layers on top of that, like, once you get glued into the characters, you can have a little bit of extra cheese or cringe on top of it, and you still love it, because at the end of the day, we love dorkable Jamal and soap opera villain Calvin and sassy Gaby. Like, it doesn't matter how many crazy scrunchies and acid wash jackets these children throw on, I still love them because of their relationships.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's the key to having and any kind of cult following too. Like, this very evidently has a little bit of a cult following, or did and still does, and I think it's because the relationship aspect of it transcends time.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty tiny now, but at the time, you know.
But it did.
Yeah, it did. It did. All right. Well, you worked us right into our next segment perfectly, because our next segment is Ghostwriter fashion.
Loved it.
As I've mentioned, this show is from the 90s, and it has very interesting fashion, and we like to take a chance every episode to look at some of the decisions that were made by the wardrobe department, the costume department, because some of them are pretty fascinating. And as always, you can follow along with this conversation on our Instagram page. It is just the Flying Cow Pod, and you can check out these marvelous looks while we talk about them. So right now, we are looking at a little collage I have made. Like I said before, the main reason I started this was for Lenny's hats, because Lenny's hats, some of them are absolutely legendary, but she has apparently decided that even if she doesn't wear any other hat, in every episode, she's going to wear at least one version of the kufi.
Yes.
So we have 3, actually, in this episode. She is wearing 3 different kufi hats, so I just put them all together in a little collage.
And they don't match any other part of her costume at all.
See, and what's crazy, okay, so look at the one in the middle, because that one,
yep.
she actually wore a couple of stories ago in an outfit that looked almost exactly like that hat.
Okay, and that would make sense.
It definitely was kind of, and I will say the first one on the left-hand side, I mean, you can't really see what she's wearing, but she's wearing kind of like a beige like coat over like a reddish kind of knit dress. And that one kind of matches. But yeah, this one on the end, she's wearing a black and white kufi in what I can only describe as an abstract painting on her body.
It's an abstract painting on top of a peasant blouse.
Yeah.
It does. And I will say, I love that blouse. Like, I would wear that blouse, but it does not go with her kufi.
No.
In any way.
See, and that's the thing. Like, honestly, for the most part, Lenny's fashion, while crazy most of the time, she usually pulls off very well. Like, there's just something about it. But occasionally she does have a look that completely does not work. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Red carpet fail right there, poor Lenny.
But yeah, I mean, this blue whatever she's wearing doesn't really go with that kufi. I did have to squeeze in one picture of Tina with her fabulous bangs.
Yes. Well, that is the only way we know she has aged.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So that we know time has passed.
We call that back in.
But yeah, it was so funny. I was watching this and I was like, wait a second, does Tina have bangs now? When did that happen?
Oh, the passage of time.
Oh yes.
Our youth.
So let's take a look at the next photo. Okay, so as I mentioned, occasionally Lenny has an outfit that does not work. Case in point, this, I don't even know how to describe this. It looks like honestly, it is some sort of gray suit. It looks like she's wearing a discarded elephant skin. It is not flattering at all.
I'm pretty sure in this photo she is either aspiring to be a modern day nun or an accountant.
Yeah. Yes.
Either way.
Yeah.
That is my mother is a tax accountant.
Sure.
And she would have worn that in the 90s.
Sure.
And I would have hated it just as much on her. It's just I think I can see what you've titled this photo. And I agree. Yes. This is part of Lenny's ugly suit collection.
Yes. Well, and it looks to me like it should have a belt or something to cinch the waist. I mean,
exactly.
It would still be ugly, but it would at least
fit her.
It would be better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's something about, I think, that particular block of color. It's a very flat gray. It's baggy.
Yeah.
The cinching on the sleeves. Of course, we're in the era of we're kind of slowly getting out of the era of shoulder pads, but it's got a shoulder pad look on it.
Yeah.
With an overextended, almost French collar. Just the entire thing is a giant.
Yeah. See,
no.
Here's the thing. There are a couple of times where they just show her from like the shoulders up, and I actually think that's kind of a cute collar on her. I hate the rest of it.
Yes. It's too many elements. It's almost like the fashion designer was trying to capture too many things at once, and it's too much in a very blah way.
Right. Well, and
it does not work.
I also feel like there's something else going on here because, okay, granted, this is the 90s, and the 90s was a time of everything's baggy.
Fair.
But
yes,
we are also dealing with children going through puberty. That
is true.
There are now, I mean, I will say some of the other girls, and honestly, even sometimes Lenny will wear something very form-fitting. But every once in a while, they put them in things like this, and I'm like, are you guys just really trying super hard not to sexualize them in any way? And number one, don't, because they're like 13. But
exactly.
It's like, you don't have to try that hard.
Yeah, it's almost in a distracting way.
Yes.
Like, now we're actually focusing on her body more because we're going, Lenny, why? Why are you wearing the gray potato sack?
Yeah, honestly, I can almost picture the director saying, I didn't mean literally put her in a sack.
You took it too literally.
Yes, too far.
Oh, Lenny.
Okay, we could probably talk about this suit for
this
another
one
hour.
Suit, it's that spectacularly awful.
Yes, but let's move on. Okay, so this is a shot of Gaby in her Galaxy Girl costume. I've actually got 2 of these. You can toggle between these because I've got one of this and I've got one of her in the blue, which I don't know about you, but I almost prefer her in the blue. Like, it just really pops on her.
It does. It really it brings out the bone structure of her face, and she's got a really beautiful bone structure.
Yeah.
And the whole thing, I think, completes the alien look too.
Yeah.
And I don't see Gaby anymore. I see Galaxy Girl.
Yeah.
But yeah, she would make oh God, what's the actress that plays the Blue Mutant?
Oh.
An X-Men.
You're talking about Mystique.
Yes. She
Jennifer
would make
Lawrence
Mystique very
or
proud.
Rebecca Romijn?
Yes. Well, both, honestly.
Yeah.
She looks a little bit. Maybe there's something in the blue makeup that just makes you look that way. I don't know, but I like it.
Yeah. No, it looks good. But yeah, this costume, like we mentioned before, it feels a little Power Rangers. She's got her very. Gaby seems to love to wear this very high top knot ponytail thing.
She loves her scrunchies. Every shot in this episode, if her hair, even when her hair is down, I think they only have it down in this episode like one time. Yeah. She's got some kind of big scrunchy barrette. Well, but that girl doesn't go anywhere without her giant scrunchies.
Even when her hair is never completely down. It's always got some sort of accessory in it. Either she's got some sort of extra ponytail popping out on top of her down hair.
Yes.
Interesting look. Or she's just got like some random like barrette or something in there. And I'm just like,
she's an accessories girl.
Yes.
I do have to say the big, and they're a little cheesy, but in the best way. I love the earrings.
The big G
the
earrings.
Giant G's.
Yeah.
I
do too.
Great.
I will say though, I think that they liked this look so much that in the next one they went a little overboard. I just gotta say, what the hell is this vest?
Yes.
What the hell is it? Like, okay, if you are not, I hope that you're following along, but if you're not, Gaby is wearing, it's basically like a green turtleneck, but over it she's wearing a jean jacket vest that just has numbers, like black plastic numbers. They're not. It's not a graphic on the shirt.
They're sewn on.
They are. So I think some of them are just pinned on because if you notice,
and
some of them
jingle.
dangle. Yes.
Oh yeah. They are only. It looks like they. It almost looks like something she made herself.
Yes.
It looks very DIY. They have put like a temporary little stitch at the top of every number so that the rest of the plastic number dangles.
Can move. Yeah. I'm just like. I feel like this was an accessory inspired by Sesame Street. This jacket is brought to you by the number 2 and 4 and 5 and 3.
And we paused it because I hated this jacket so much, Clay. I hated this jacket. It physically made me angry looking at this jacket. Now,
and she wears it for a long ass time.
Entire episode. It's so upsetting, and we're actually working with my middle schoolers. We're working on costume design right now. So, like, seeing this just upset me to my core because the designer
I'm sorry. I really want one of your middle schoolers to make this jacket now.
I would have. Well, I wouldn't have failed this child, but I would have critiqued it so bad going, there's no purpose to your design.
No.
And note how the number 9 is missing. So it's clearly not brought to you by the number 9.
No.
Because
no.
number 9 is nowhere on her jacket.
Every other number but the number 9.
You can't see it in this photo, but when she turns around, the back of it is like a neon orange with an acid wash finish.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It gets uglier.
I didn't think it was
I
possible.
don't understand. I love the Space Girl outfit, minus the like tacked on glow in the dark ring around her neck. That was the one part where I laughed, going, "Well, we made some budget cuts there."
Yeah, I didn't really know what that was about, but
yeah. Typically, I'm into their '90s fashion. Like, I can even handle Lenny's ugly suits, but this vest, it broke me. I just couldn't.
All right. Well, let's move on from your trauma, shall we?
Thank you.
All right. So
God.
this, and if you might notice, I've kind of pushed these two photos together. This is the rest of the team wearing their hyperball gear. And this is the look I was referring to earlier when I said they more resembled the putties, because if you replace that little like medallion symbol they have in the middle with a big metallic Z, they'd just be, well, they'd fall all apart is what they do.
Yes. It's like it's a weird 90s color blocking version of a putty costume meets one of the cards from Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, I also feel like they just had to put them in this outfit because now Lenny's found a new hat.
She just needed another hat.
Yes, she just needed another one. But yeah, I'm guessing they're on like two separate sides, because I'm like, why are some of them in yellow and some of them are in the I guess it's that orange.
It's oh god,
like
I don't
peach.
Is that sienna?
Yeah.
It's something. Can you hear the disdain of that color in my voice? I'm digging the mustard yellow, but that like peach, no.
I don't know. Well, and then Rob and Alex, if you look closely, have like face tattoos.
Yes.
And I think they're just like arrows painted on their face. I'm like, what is that all about? I don't know.
Which is not the best artwork, because from a distance it just looks like they're smudged.
Yeah.
Or got punched in the face a little bit. And I'm just being really nitpicky because I love costume design. But I would never have, I would switch the colors. Put Lenny and Jamal in the mustard yellow and put those two gentlemen in the peach, because those two look so washed out with their face really paint arrow bruise. It just doesn't. It doesn't fully hurt me to my core, but I question their design.
Sure.
But you know what, Tina's kind of rocking it.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I usually think that Jamal looks good in whatever, but I think he could really have rocked the yellow. I think you're right.
Yeah, I would have done a color switch. But yeah, again, I think Jamal has a really great bone structure as well. Mm-hmm. And so I like that he has a high and tight haircut. And then even when you put like a cap on him, it draws your eye to his bone structure. And I really appreciate when designers know and understand that they have that. Yeah, that they know when to accentuate that. Because if you have an actor that's got a very strong bone structure, why not highlight that? Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move forward. So, like I said, Gaby gets to hug Ghostwriter.
Yes. I think it's sweet.
And of course, he's wearing a little visor with a black face covering.
Yeah, and, a duckbill visor. Because when I think Ghostwriter, I think duckbill for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I just threw this in because I was like, this is like the only time that we get even close to getting to quote unquote see Ghostwriter. So
Yeah.
it's like, you know, there have been a couple of times that I've thrown in a picture of the little glowing ball, but that's.
But we actually get Ghostwriter is very tall.
Yes.
We
well,
know
I mean,
this.
he's an adult. These are all like Gaby in this episode says that she's 9. I mean, I think the actress is actually closer to like 11 or 12. But you know, in order to still be in elementary school, she has to be 9.
Sure.
But yeah, so all right, okay, and this is a picture of the real Galaxy Girl. So Galaxy Girl was played by Daisy Fuentes, who I think was like a VJ on VH1 after this.
Okay.
Like actually maybe even at this time. So she was kind of a get for the show.
Well, and she really does, like, she and Gaby kind of favor each other.
Yes. Honestly, she
I
just
like
looks
that
like an
detail.
adult Gaby in that costume.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. This is what Gaby looks like in 15 years.
Yeah.
And I love. I'm sure that was an intentional design, like an intentional casting choice, and I love it.
Yeah.
Because it's so clear that Gaby fangirls her even after maybe a subconscious moment of she looks like her, like she wants to grow up and be her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and then of course we've got a cameo of Ghostwriter shooting around in the background, and
oh yeah, I see it now. Yep.
Yeah, and so Galaxy Girl in this shot, I had a solo picture of it, but I had way too many to include it. But she is holding what is called a Kija, which in the lore of the show is the ball in Hyperball, but it is also apparently the Makva's favorite food. I have to say, I don't think that this was the first story I ever saw of Ghostwriter, but it was one of the first ones that I saw. And I have visceral memories of the idea of the Makvas trying to eat the Kija. Mostly because it kind of looks like those old, like, rainbow sprinkle Little Debbie cakes.
Yes. It's a donut hole. It's like a little sprinkled pink donut hole.
Yeah. So I just remember, like, thinking, that looks really yummy, but I'm not supposed to eat it. I'm really confused.
I'm telling you, the more and more I think about it, the more the Makvas have a lot of great assets going on.
Maybe they've got some good points. I'm just saying.
But by the end of this, I may actually be blue. By the end of this episode is where I'm headed.
All right. Okay. So
oh, the cute twins.
I have to say, there are so many characters in this show that dress up as Makvas. And I didn't know, I thought about including Lieutenant McQuaid, I thought about including Calvin, Jeffrey, who cares? But but I was like, the moment that I saw the scene with the twins again, I was like, it's gotta be them.
They're so, like, just I want to hug them. Like,
yeah.
Look at her smile.
Yes.
I just want to be her friend.
They're so entertaining, and they have such a small scene. Like, such a tiny little scene, and it's great.
And it's so memorable.
Yeah.
Like, they almost make up for the damage in my soul that Gaby's number vest does. Yeah. Like, they almost repair that damage.
Yeah. Yeah, but here they are, you know, in their all blue outfit, just doing their twin thing, and like you said, looking super cute. So
living their best life.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, and I had to include this. You might not get anything from this, Allie, but in a few episodes or stories ago, we met the fabulous Lana Barnes, who was in that story. She was receiving an award because she was the first female action hero in film history. And
as in the world of the show.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not really. No, she's not a real person. I mean, the actress is, but not the character.
She's a ghost.
But there is a scene where just randomly for no reason than just to show that Lana Barnes is still a part of this reality. Tina is walking down the street while she's about to get a rally message, and she's like, Lana Barnes has a new aerobics video. She's like, she's the best. And it's great. If you're not reading it, it says Lana Barnes aerobically yours. And here's the thing. She may not look super inspiring or anything, but here's the thing. That woman, when she played this character, was in her 70s.
What?
She must be doing something right. I would use her workout video.
Goodness.
Absolutely.
That's excellent. Which you filled in some holes, because from not knowing that this is a character in the show, all I see is this girl walking down being excited about an aerobic VHS for no reason.
It is really random. Yeah. Oh.
And then I was just giggling at how dated it is to have an aerobics VHS.
Oh, yeah.
And we're not going to talk about the ones that I may have owned as a child. It's fine. I was never Tina. It's fine.
No.
I didn't have like 6 jazzercise VHSs. What? That?
No.
Psh, no.
I didn't have Quit into the Oldies memorized by heart.
Also, Aerobically Yours, I need them to like write a pop song for that character.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like Olivia Newton-John would have sung that, you know?
I'm telling you, I know that you kind of had mixed feelings about the show, but if you do decide to watch any other episode, watch the episode Who's Who with you need Lana Barnes in your life.
You know what? The fact that even from that picture and you telling me that she was a 70-year-old woman, I do need Lana Barnes in my life.
I mean, the episode is kind of a mess. I think that
that's great.
I think that the writer stuck a few different drafts together. But it's still fun. It's all right. Okay. So, let's go ahead and let's move on to our top suspect. So, this is basically the person in the episode that just either was your favorite or you thought gave the best performance or just made you smile. Any criteria that you want to use. So, I mean, it can be anybody. It can be one of the leads. It can be one of the side characters. It can be an extra in the background. It can be Ghostwriter if you want. But so, Allie, who is your top suspect?
Oh, there's so many paths I could choose for my criteria.
I had a hard time choosing this one. Yeah.
I gotta go with my little and I can't remember their name off the top of my head, but the little female writer at the end.
Oh, Abigail.
Little female
Abigail Jefferson.
Yes, I don't know. She just made my heart smile.
Sure.
She's just, I think you said it earlier, delightful. Like,
yeah.
She is delightful, and I could not, well, she was blue, so that helped. But I could not take my eyes off her when she was on the screen.
Yeah.
She has, I see how much fun she is having.
Absolutely.
And it makes me have fun with her. And I think that can be very difficult, especially for a caricature character like that. I think that can easily be overplayed.
Yeah.
She is delightful, and I think that can be hard to come across as realistic. Those kind of out there characters can be very difficult to come off without a giant cheesy curve.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, I agreed with you because my top suspect were the Jefferson twins. I gave it.
They're
to both
so
of them.
cute.
They're great, and honestly, I'm gonna say I did have an honorable mention, and I'll talk about them in a second.
Okay.
But the moment they came on the screen, I was like, it can't be anybody else. They're just like in the tiny little. I'm like. While I could understand how these characters, if you had too much of them, would have been overload, but I would have liked more than just the one scene we got.
Yes, they really are the definition of stole the show.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
mean, this little bit role that completely stole the episode.
Yeah. But my honorable mention up to this point was the Fernandez family. I gave it to all of them because I just loved their dynamic in this episode. Just the way that they all interacted with each other. And honestly, that even fed into the next segment, which we'll talk about in a second. But just, Gaby, while she's not necessarily being her normal self, is doing a great job leading this story. Alex is doing a good job, like we said, showing multiple sides of his personality. And anytime the Fernandez parents come into this show, they are one of the best parts.
It's just they really do play. They have such chemistry as a family, and I love that the writers allow them that spotlight to showcase what a loving working family can look like.
Yeah, well, and also there wasn't a whole lot of Latinx characters like this on television at the time. So to see this type of loving family, that representation is pretty awesome.
And it's such a I keep trying to come up with better vocabulary, but I'm gonna use the same words. You're right. It is so realistic of a representation, and it I feel like this is a real family.
Yeah.
One of 100 real families that would be in Brooklyn that runs this bodega that has a mix of their heritage and the melting pot of North American culture. Like everything about it is so real.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Yeah.
And it's so refreshing to see. And in one of the podcasts, as I was preparing for the show, I listened to a few of the ones, skimmed through some of the other episodes, and you mentioned this at one point, and even when I was watching this, my husband Chris watched it with me, and he paused it to make this observation that I had heard you make about how diverse the cast of characters are, and at this time in particular.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's fabulous. And you had shows that kind of subdivided cultures, right? You have the Full House, that's predominantly the Caucasian story.
Yeah.
You have the Cosbys, predominantly the African American story. But I love that this wasn't any one race or gender. It was just everyone in one show. And that is more of a representation, I think, of what our country actually looks like.
Right, but it also didn't feel like stunt casting.
No, yes, it didn't.
Like
it
didn't feel like they were
blind
trying to
casting or
quota.
anything like that.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It fit.
Yeah.
It was all natural. You don't question it at all.
Yeah.
And I gotta give it up to the casting directors for that, because that's sometimes hard to do too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, moving on then. Now that we've picked our top suspect, the next segment is our rewind moment. This is the moment in the episode that either was your favorite or the moment that just made you go, what? So, Allie, what was your rewind moment?
I will do one with an honorable mention.
Okay.
My honorable mention has to be the episode recaps. They do an excellent job of recapping very succinctly everything that's happened.
That's so funny because most of my guests make fun of the episode recap.
No, I love it. Well, the funny thing about the recap is instead of watching the whole episode, hour and a half, I could just watch the 5 minutes of recap
just
and
watch
know what
the
happened.
recap. Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought their brevity of the recaps and highlighting it is actually really well done. The parts that made me giggle were were just the transitions of space themed television where you'd have the things flying in and out and the aliens flying everywhere, and I just giggled every time I saw it. Because it's such outdated technology, and it's not their fault. But from a 2020 perspective, I just
time, they weren't trying to be impressive with those scenes.
It was very cheeky, I think, intentionally.
Yeah, which honestly, I kind of really liked about it. They didn't really even try to make it look like Cutesy was flying through it was like, this is a toy that we're just moving around.
Yes, like the and I love that the convention stage had like clearly wooden and hand painted signs for the show. Like aesthetically, so much of this feels like a middle school production, and I mean that in the best way.
Yeah.
Like I actually love that about this.
Yeah.
I think they're owning up to the fact that this is the budget that we have, and we're not going to try to hide from it.
Yeah.
We're gonna, and I loved it.
All right. Well, mine, I cheated just a little bit because I picked 2. Mostly because I did have kind of like a that's just so ridiculous scene, and then I also had just my favorite scene that we didn't get to talk about yet. Was so the first one, the silly scene was there is a scene when right before they realize that Judge Reinhold is not the thief, where they have, and I can only describe this as a Scooby-Doo chase, because Rob and Lenny have this chase with Judge Reinhold, and it's just like straight out of a cartoon. It is so ridiculous.
It would make all the French farces in the world so pleased, because it's literally in one door and out the other.
Yeah, and there is literally a scene where he is chasing both of them. Lenny gets behind him, sits down in a chair. He runs past her, and she points where Rob is. He goes and then looks at her and is like, and then they run after. I'm just like, so great. So great. But then my other, honestly, my just favorite scene in the episode was after Gaby has had the nightmare where she turns blue completely as Galaxy Girl. And she just kind of, she has that heart-to-heart with Ghostwriter. And he does that thing that he does in a lot of episodes where he's just like, write a letter. That's what the show's about. Write a letter. And she does. She starts writing a letter to her parents because she's like, I feel alone. I feel like they don't trust me. I feel, and just being very honest. And so he's like, write a letter, get your feelings out, because, that's going to be your best way to convey how you're feeling, because you can take several stabs at it. So she writes this letter, and I just love this scene for how honest she is. Because she really, as she's writing out her thoughts, she's like, no, actually, I was being kind of a jerk. And she's just kind of very honest with herself. And I was like, because the whole episode, I was like, man, I miss my fun, spunky Gaby. But then I'm like, man, Maytiana Morales is killing this scene.
Yes.
It's like
so real. And there's even a moment where she has a stomach ache because of the guilt.
Yeah.
And I instantly thought, girl, that's so realistic.
Yeah.
Like, I remember being in elementary school and telling a lie or, doing something shady. Sure. And I remember telling my mother that I had a stomach ache.
Absolutely.
And it was because I was so ridden with guilt, but of course I had all these excuses.
Yeah.
I like that was your moment, because that was a really great moment in the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're getting down to it here, Allie. So I've just got a couple more questions for you. First of all, if Ghostwriter were real and he wrote to you, would you write back? And if so, what would you say?
Ugh. I'm really struggling with this answer. Yeah. My immediate thought is to, again, typically other nostalgia makes me think of my nostalgia. Sure. So when I think of a book writing back to me, I, of course, think Tom Riddle in the second Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting here going, oh, but am I interacting with essentially the Dark Lord and he who must not be named? But on the other hand, I'm a little bit of a Makva, I have understood, and I probably would absolutely write back. It's like it's like that, you know, the Ouija board moves and you know not to touch it. You know, but you gotta touch that red button. I would write back.
Okay.
I would probably regret it and chaos would ensue. And I would be interacting with some dark juju, but man, I would definitely write back just to see what happens.
Any message in mind, or just?
If I had my wits about me in a magical world where I'm super cool and calm and collected at all times, in my magical, really cool world, I'd probably try to fuck with him a little. Like, I would, like, write riddles or write stuff that doesn't make sense or throw facts out there. I would definitely try to mess with this character.
So basically what you're saying is you're not the type of person Ghostwriter would write to.
No! No! One part of me is very much like, but I'm good and I have a good heart too. And the other part of me likes Calvin too much. And I just think the mission is fun.
Oh, yeah.
I think in a dark world, I turn blue. I turn evil, and I chant really cool things all the time. Would you write back?
You know, nobody's ever turned it around on me. I absolutely would. I mean, after watching this show, I mean, in this hypothetical sense, I would know that it's Ghostwriter, and I'd be like,
Fair.
Cool, Ghostwriter's writing to me.
What would you try to find out? Or what would you ask?
I mean, you know, at this point, I just probably want to know what he's been up to. You know, it's like, are you still in touch with Lenny and Jamal and the gang? Or, you know, is Tina seeing anybody? You know, what's going on?
Did her and Alex work it out, or did it just continue to fall?
Yeah, because all I'm saying is...
That's not good enough, Alex.
You know he fell. You know he screwed it up. So
you know he should have kissed her back with the trash.
Yeah.
That worked. I don't know why he deviated, Alex.
Well, that and you know, writing scripts that told her exactly what to say to him.
Of course. Yes.
But yeah, okay, so we mentioned earlier in the show that the identity of Ghostwriter was kind of supposed to be a big part of this show. Uh-huh. So after, you know, you haven't seen a lot of it, but after watching what you have seen and what you know of Ghostwriter, who or what do you think Ghostwriter is?
So I was thinking about that as I was watching this episode. Mm-hmm. And I don't have a fully formed, conclusive answer. At first, I thought, well, is it one of the kids in the friend group? Like, could it possibly somehow be one of the little pack has one of their secret pens that they actually can be like in another room? Because sometimes Ghost Boy interacts with them when one of them is not in the room.
Not in the room. But there are also...
often...
Yeah. There are also several scenes where they're all together, but yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so that shot that I'm not really sure. I gotta go. Okay, here's a theory that I just pulled out of nowhere, but I like it, so I'm going with it.
Okay.
I think that Ghostwriter was somehow killed on the block of the bodega.
Oh, wow.
And therefore he haunts, but in a good way. Like, he has been haunting to find out what happened. He's not at peace, but then he finds his purpose by helping these
basically,
kids
he's
navigate
recruited
life.
These children to eventually solve his own murder?
Yes. Yes.
That's
and
not a bad
along
idea.
The way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Along the way, he discovers friendship, and his real purpose is helping others find the light and the
Yes.
good-hearted nature and etc.
The heartwarming story of Ghostwriter.
That's that's the PBS twist on the
All right.
after school special.
All right. Well, with that being said, like I said, this was supposed to be a very important part of the show. Sometimes they used him more as a tool than an actual character, but it was something that they had actually planned to eventually reveal the identity of Ghostwriter. Unfortunately, the show was canceled due to lack of funds in the middle of the third season, and it was never revealed. Although they would drop hints here and there occasionally, it was never fully revealed. But in a 2010 interview, writer and producer Kermit Frazier did reveal the identity of Ghostwriter. Would you like to know what that is?
I would very much like to know.
Okay. So, in the interview, he revealed that Ghostwriter was...
What? What the fuck?
Okay, this is one of the few times I wish that this podcast had video, because your reaction during all of that was the best.
I am filled with so many emotions right now.
Right?
So I was right in my guess of like someone killed wrongly.
Possibly,
And their
yeah.
ghost is still lingering.
Sure.
But like, I don't like it.
Oh, wow. I think you're the first person to say that you outright don't like it.
No, I outright, because now again, maybe if I had seen the entire story arc and I had seen all the hints that they dropped to
Sure.
it would have led me to it more. But out of the blue, it kind of feels like how the ending of this Am I Blue episode ended, where you're like, you vaguely mentioned that once, and this is the villain.
Sure.
I kind of feel blindsided going,
Yeah.
how in the hell would I know that? Like, nothing in this story alludes to this at all. So
Sure.
I'm a little like, because I like to solve mysteries, and one of my favorite
Sure.
things to do is to try to guess the ending of shows or the twist before they happen.
Right.
And that is what I could have never seen coming.
Yeah.
So I'm a little personally irritated that I would
Sure.
never have been able to solve that.
That's really funny.
But you know what? They did a great job concealing that mystery, because I would, in a million years, never have guessed that story arc.
Sure. All right. Well, we have finally reached the end of these segments, but before we move on to the last little bit, I do want to give everyone the opportunity to get in contact with the podcast if you would like to. We're very easy to find. I am the Flying Cow Pod on just about everything. At the Flying Cow Pod on Twitter, the Flying Cow Pod on Instagram, and the Flying Cow Pod at gmail.com is the email address. And you can also find me on Facebook. There's a group if anybody's still there. But I want to give you, Allie, the opportunity, if there's anything that you wanted to share to let us know about, or if there's anything that you are enjoying in pop culture. Can be anything, but an added bonus if it uplifts the voices of women or people of color.
Ooh, all right. I will say in pop culture, I'm a little bit obsessed with, and it's not even on the air anymore, but this was my quarantine binge watching.
Oh.
Started to, and I'm still finishing it up.
Okay.
We went through it very slowly. This was end of quarantine. Like, we started this in July.
Sure.
And we actually did start going back in person in August.
Oh,
But Once Upon a Time,
really?
the ABC version, I started to watch it when it first came out. Loved season 1. I love fairy tales.
Sure.
Always loved them as a kid. That's very accessible to middle schoolers now because it's a universal storyline.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we do a lot. And half of what I teach, I'd say 60% of in-class activities involve improvisation in some way, because I teach all of my theater classes from a performance on your feet aspect,
Mm-hmm.
not from a textbook analyze play aspect. Middle schoolers don't want to do that. They want to get up and play
Sure.
and create. And that's what I want them to do.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of like, when you're writing monologues, write it from, Cinderella's stepsister, but the twist is she's not the evil one. Cinderella is. So
interesting.
I loved Once Upon a Time season 1.
Okay.
Lost interest in it in
Sure.
2, and picked it back up again here in quarantine. And I think the writing, the costume design is brilliant. A lot of strong female characters in that one. I'm a little biased because sometimes it is very hard as an actress to find a really good, if you want to play the slut, to be really honest, it's really easy to find some great juicy slutty roles, but it's not always, of a certain age. You get the middle-aged characters 50 plus, easy to find, but it can be hard to find a very meaty role, I think, for women between 25 and 40 that is not intentionally an overly romantic or sexualized character.
Sure.
Now, of course, there are romances in this, and I'm a girl and I like fairy tales, so of course I love a little romance. But they all have such great story arcs. They're all developed so much over the 7 seasons.
Yeah.
I'm a little obsessed with it. Can you tell?
I mean, I
Not
can,
at all.
but it's fine. It's fine.
I hate it so much. It's the worst show ever. But that's my current obsession.
I will say, I find it interesting that you said you kind of lost interest around season 2, because I actually, when I first moved out here, I had not yet secured a job, and I had basically nothing to do, so I watched a whole lot of television.
Quarantine.
Yes. Oh, believe me, I've been preparing for quarantine all my life. But I watched I watched a bunch of things, and this was one of the things that popped up, and I was like, I'll give this a shot. And it was similar. I watched and was interested in the first season. I was, it was kind of goofy, but I was like, I'd like to see where this goes. And at that point, all there was the first 2 seasons. And yeah, the second season kind of ended, and I was like, good. I don't really feel like I need to tune into this week to week. I'm good. But I'm
there's
interested
a couple.
It's interesting that you say it picks back up.
Oh, it picks back up. I think they didn't know who they wanted to be. I don't think they really wrote it to be more than season 1. And then they realized, oh, this works. And 2 is the awkward middle school of life going, who am I? I don't know. I'm a jock and an emo kid who also has bangs and wears koofies. Like, I don't... you just don't know who you are. And season 2 is the middle school student of Once Upon a Time.
Well, I'm glad to hear at least they figured it out. They could have been heroes.
Yes. Oh, but it's good. It's good.
Okay. All right. Well, my recommendation is a show that sadly recently just got canceled.
Oh, no.
And I can't believe that it got canceled right before... I mean, obviously it's because of quarantine, but right before the final season. It is Netflix's Glow. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but... I
have seen a few episodes, and it was really well written.
Yeah, it is, for those people who are not familiar, it is about... It is loosely based on an actual wrestling promotion from the 80s called Glow. Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, that's right. It's one of those, like I said, it's not really... they don't take characters or anything like that. It's loosely based on that program. But that program was very as much as even wrestling now is represented as more entertainment than sport, this show was 100% it's more entertainment than sport. There was like a couple of matches, and mostly there were hee-haw sketches on the side. But this show basically takes that concept and follows these characters, and it's mostly women. Like I said, it was Brie Larson. No, Allison Brie. I love Brie Larson, but she's not in this show. Allison Brie and
Allison Brie alone is fabulous. I fell in love with her on Community.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
She's an excellent actress. Oh my god. And there's a ton of really fun, well-developed characters on Glow as well. Even in the few episodes that I've watched.
Yeah, but
those would all be so much fun.
It's Allison Brie and Betty Gilpin are the leads, and it's one of those shows. Like, I watched the first season and I liked it, but I was like, I'm interested with what they do with the next season. Every single season got better and better and better, to the point where by the end of the third season, it was one of my favorite shows. Like,
I'll have to pick it back up then, because I only watched a few in season 1.
Yeah.
Never got to 2 or 3.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah. And like I said, I liked season 1. Honestly, the main reason that I watched it was, number one, I love Allison Brie, like you said.
Oh, she's great. I love her.
But also, I'm an old school wrestling fan, and so I thought the idea of that sounded interesting, so I wanted to check. And to their credit, these women actually went to like wrestling camp. They're doing, they do have, I think, a couple of doubles and stuff here and there, but for a lot of it, they're doing their own stunts and their own and it looks great. But this show, I mean, it focuses on these women in the 80s, in a time when women were really not being taken seriously, and it really focuses on, not just, them struggling to, find their art, find love, find all this kind of stuff, but is very introspective on that. And it just, if somebody needed to watch a show to realize that women are people, this is one of the shows
Ding, 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 ding.
that they would need to watch, because there are, like, I know it's gonna sound weird coming from a dude, but I love the way they use nudity in this show.
Yes, well, and costuming and everything.
Yeah, it's because
it's so intentional.
Most of the time when you see, especially female nudity in any type of medium, it is 90% of the time meant to be alluring and meant to be sexy. Yeah. And there are times in this when it's goofy. There are times in this when it's absolutely tragic and ugly and just full despair. And it's just such an amazing show. And I hate that it was canceled, but there are still 3 seasons of it that exist. They need and deserve to be watched. Maybe if enough people watch it, Netflix or somebody else will pick it up, because it's such a good show.
It sounds like they at least maybe need like a made for TV film to finish up,
because
the plot holes.
It was their last season. It was going to be their last season. They were going to finish it, and I was just so frustrated.
Like the cancellation of Firefly, you just can't leave it there. You've got to finish it.
Well, I don't know. I've revisited Firefly recently. It doesn't work as well. Especially, with other things that have been coming out about certain people and certain ideas that they had for the show. And things like that. But this is not that show. This is
better.
Yes, this is better.
This is a much better show.
All right. Well, Allie, thank you so much for being here.
I had a blast. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
No problem. And
introducing me to such a weird, wonderful, strange piece of cinematic history.
Yes. Absolutely. The show that no one ever thought that they needed, and we're not really even sure that they do, but they could. But we will be back next time with an episode that just might pay off that little seed of dissension between the Frasers and the Fernandezes. We will have to see in the episode entitled "Get the Message." Really not sure what that title means, but all right. But yes, I do not have this show is one of the few that does not have Lenny singing any sort of music. In most episodes, Lenny sings or writes some sort of song or rap or something. So instead we're gonna go out with because the last episode had 3. So we're going to go out with one of those. But as always, until next time, Ghostwriter out!
We're just 2 girls from around the way. Gaby and Tina, what's something to say? If you want R-E-S-P-E-C-T, you gotta give it to get it. Everybody, do you hear what I'm saying? Are you home? Ding dong, open up the door. It's time to get along. It hurts to feel scared in our own neighborhood. Let's stop the violence, make it safe like it should be. Come together, let's start with you and me. Come together, if we respect each other, you'll see. We can save the world, one piece at a time. We're starting it off by kicking this rhyme. You need ammunition, just use your mind and come together.